The city was busy and loud that afternoon. Cars moved quickly along the streets, people walked with purpose, and the sun shone brightly over tall buildings. Among all the hustle and noise, David, a rich man in a sharp suit, stood near a cafe, looking at the crowd. David was a billionaire. He owned many businesses and had everything money could buy. But today, his mind was not on his work or his money. Something in the busy street caught his eye. Near a small alley, close to a big trash bin, a young girl was digging through the garbage. Her clothes were old and dirty, and her small hands moved quickly as she searched. David watched quietly, feeling a strange feeling in his heart. The girl's name was Mia. She was not much older than 10 years old. Her face was tired, but her eyes were strong and careful. She pulled out a half-eaten sandwich and looked around quickly to make sure no one was watching her closely. Then she ate it slowly, almost like she was afraid the food might disappear if she ate too fast. David saw her again the next day. And the day after. Every day, Mia came to that same place, digging through the trash for something to eat. Sometimes she found food, sometimes just old paper or broken pieces of plastic. But she never gave up. One day, David decided to follow her. He walked a few steps behind, staying quiet. Mia moved fast, but he kept up. She went to a small, broken-down building nearby and opened the door carefully. Inside, David saw a little boy, younger than Mia, sitting on the floor. The boy looked hungry and tired. Mia gave the boy the sandwich she found earlier. The boy smiled weakly and took the food. David's heart tightened. He wanted to help but did not know how. Mia looked around the room. It was dark and empty except for a few old blankets on the floor. No toys, no books, no light. Just a cold, empty space. David could feel how lonely and hard life was for her and the little boy. That night, David could not stop thinking about Mia. He was a man who could buy anything: houses, cars, even whole companies, but here was a girl who did not have enough to eat. He felt a pain in his chest, a deep sadness he had never felt before. The next morning, David went to the cafe near the trash bin again. He hoped to see Mia. He wanted to know more about her story. When Mia arrived, she looked tired but still moved carefully, as if she was watching everything and everyone around her. David wanted to say something to her, but he was afraid. He didn't want to scare her away. Instead, he sat quietly at a table and watched. He noticed how careful Mia was with the food she found. She did not waste anything. She even saved a small piece of bread for the little boy. David felt something change inside him. He wanted to do more than just watch. He wanted to help, but he knew he could not just give her money and walk away. Mia needed more than that. She needed kindness, safety, and a chance to live a better life. Over the next few days, David thought a lot about how he could help Mia. He knew he had to be careful and patient. Mia's world was not easy, and trust was something she did not give easily. One afternoon, David walked slowly toward Mia with a small bag in his hand. His heart was beating fast. Mia looked up and stared at him. She did not smile. She did not run away. She just watched. David held out the bag and said softly, "I brought some food for you." Mia looked inside the bag. There were sandwiches, fruits, and a bottle of water. Her eyes grew wide. For a moment, she did not say anything. David waited. Mia slowly reached out and took the bag. She whispered, "Thank you." That small word felt very big to David. It was the first time Mia had spoken to him. From that day, David began to visit Mia regularly. Sometimes, he would bring food. Sometimes, he would just sit near her and watch the world together. Mia started to feel less afraid. She began to trust David a little. But life was still hard for Mia. She had to protect her little brother and find ways to survive every day. David knew this was only the beginning. He wanted to learn more about Mia's story. He wanted to understand how a young girl could be so strong and brave, even when the world around her was so difficult. One evening, as the sun began to set, David sat on a bench not far from where Mia found her food. He thought about the girl who had opened a small door into his heart. He knew that seeing Mia digging through the trash had changed something inside him. It was not just a moment. It was the start of a journey. David did not know what the future held. But he was sure of one thing: he could not turn away from Mia now. She was no longer just a girl in the trash. She was a story, a hope, and a chance to do something good. As the city lights began to glow, David looked at the empty street where Mia had disappeared into the night. He made a silent promise to himself, to help her, no matter what it took. David was a man used to control. His days were filled with meetings, decisions, and plans. But now, his attention was fixed on something he had never faced before: a small girl named Mia, who lived a life so different from his own. For several days, David watched Mia quietly from a distance. He did not want to scare her away, so he kept his presence gentle and soft like a shadow. Mia did not seem to notice him, or if she did not show it. Each morning, Mia left the broken building where she and her little brother stayed. She walked fast but carefully, eyes sharp to the world around her. David saw how she looked at people, how she moved like she was ready for anything. It was clear she had learned to be strong very early in life. David followed her quietly through the busy streets. Mia stopped at a small park where other children played, but she did not join them. Instead, she sat alone on a bench, her hands folded tightly in her lap. David wondered why she stayed apart. Was she afraid? Was she shy? Or was there something else keeping her away? After a few minutes, Mia pulled out a small, worn notebook. She opened it carefully and looked at some drawings inside. David could see pictures of a house, a sunny day, and two children playing. Her small hands traced the drawings slowly, almost like they held memories of a different life. David felt a lump in his throat. These drawings were more than pictures. They were dreams. Dreams of a happy home, a life with love and laughter. Later that day, David watched as Mia went to a small corner store. She had a few coins in her hand, and she counted them slowly before buying a small packet of biscuits. The shopkeeper smiled at her kindly and said something, but Mia only nodded quietly. David saw the kindness in the shopkeeper's eyes. Even in the city's hardest places, small acts of kindness still lived. As Mia walked back to the alley, David noticed something else. She stopped near a street dog, thin and dirty. The dog looked at her with soft eyes. Mia slowly reached out and gave the dog a small piece of biscuit. The dog wagged its tail gently and followed her for a few steps before disappearing into the street. David was surprised. Mia was tough, but she was also kind. She shared what little she had with a dog who was as hungry and alone as she was. That evening, David returned to the cafe and thought about everything he had seen. Mia was not just a girl who dug through trash. She was a child full of hope, dreams, and kindness. David wanted to do more than just watch. The next day, David decided to learn more about the world Mia lived in. He spoke quietly with some local people, asking about children like Mia. They told him stories of families lost, parents who had left or passed away, and children forced to grow up too fast. David's heart grew heavier. He realized Mia's story was not just one girl's pain, it was the pain of many children living in the shadows of the city. But David also saw something else. He saw the strength in Mia's eyes. The way she protected her little brother, the way she cared for the dog, the way she kept her dreams alive in a small notebook. David wanted to be part of that strength. He wanted to help Mia not just for a moment, but for her whole life. Over the next few days, David watched more closely. He saw Mia teaching her brother how to count using stones she found on the street. He saw her sharing her biscuits carefully, saving the best parts for her little brother. David was touched. In a world that had given her so little, Mia gave all she had to others. One afternoon, David followed Mia to the broken building where she lived. From a distance, he saw the two children enter quietly. David wanted to see inside, but he also wanted to respect their privacy. He made a note to find a way to offer help that Mia would accept, without fear or shame. That night, David thought about his own childhood. He remembered the safety of his home, the warmth of his family, the food always on the table. It was hard for him to imagine life without those things. But Mia did not have that life. She had only her strength, her hope, and her love for her brother. David decided that he would do whatever he could to change Mia's world. The next morning, David returned to the cafe with a plan. He brought with him a small box filled with food, water, and a warm blanket. He also carried a book, hoping to share it with Mia. When Mia arrived, David smiled gently and called her name softly. Mia looked at him with surprise and a little fear. But David's smile was kind and patient. He handed her the box and said, "I brought this for you and your brother. I hope it helps." Mia opened the box carefully. Her eyes shone with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. She looked up at David and whispered, "Thank you." David felt a deep happiness inside. This small moment was the first step towards something bigger. Mia looked at the book David had brought. It was full of simple stories and pictures. David said, "If you like, I can come and read with you sometime." Mia nodded slowly. For the first time, she felt a little less alone. David knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. But he also knew that with patience and kindness, he could help Mia find a better future. As Mia walked away with the box in her hands, David watched her go with hope in his heart. He promised himself that he would not stop until Mia and her brother had a safe place to live and a life full of possibilities. And so, the quiet observation became the start of a new story. A story of trust, kindness, and a chance to change a life forever. The morning sun was warm but gentle as David made his way to the small alley where Mia lived. He had thought a lot about how to speak to her, how to show kindness without frightening her. Today, he decided, he would try. Mia was already there when he arrived. She was sitting on the ground beside the trash bin, carefully cleaning a small metal cup with a rag. Her little brother, Tom, was nearby, playing quietly with a broken toy car. Both children looked tired but strong. David took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Hello, Mia," he said softly. Mia looked up quickly. Her eyes widened with surprise. She had not expected to hear her name from someone like David, a man in fine clothes, carrying a small bag. David smiled gently and sat down on the ground, careful not to seem too big or threatening. "I brought some food for you and Tom," he said, holding out the bag. Mia hesitated. Her body stayed still, but her eyes flickered with both hope and fear. She was not used to kindness from strangers, especially not from rich men. But hunger was a powerful feeling. Slowly, Mia reached out and took the bag. She opened it carefully, revealing sandwiches, fruits, and a bottle of water. Her small hands trembled a little. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at David with a shy smile. David felt his heart soften. "You're very strong, Mia. I see how hard you work to take care of Tom." Mia looked down. "I have to," she said quietly. "No one else will." David nodded. "I want to help. Not just today, but every day if you want." Mia blinked. "Why? You don't know me." David laughed softly. "Maybe. But I want to learn." For the first time, Mia looked at David with something like hope. She wanted to believe that someone cared. The next few minutes were quiet. Tom crawled into Mia's lap, holding a small piece of bread. Mia shared the food slowly, making sure Tom ate first. David watched the care between the two siblings and felt a deep respect for Mia's courage. After some time, David pulled out the small book he had brought, a book filled with simple stories and pictures. "Would you like me to read to you?" he asked. Mia looked at the book, then at David. She nodded slowly. David opened the book and began to read in a soft voice. Mia and Tom listened carefully. For a moment, the harsh sounds of the city seemed far away. The three sat together, sharing a quiet space filled with stories and warmth. When David finished reading, Mia looked up. "Can you come again?" she asked quietly. "I will," David promised. Over the next days, David kept his word. He returned often, bringing food, books, and sometimes small gifts like pencils and paper. Slowly, Mia began to trust him more. She told David small things about her life: how she and Tom had lost their parents, how they found shelter where they could, and how every day was a fight to survive. David listened carefully. He never pushed her to talk more than she wanted. He knew trust had to grow slowly. One afternoon, Mia showed David her notebook with drawings. "This is my house," she said, pointing to a picture of a small house with a garden. "I want to live there one day." David smiled. "I believe you will." Mia's eyes shone with hope. It was the first time she spoke openly about a future that was not full of fear. David began to realize that his role was not just to give food or gifts. It was to be someone Mia could count on, a friend in a world that often felt lonely and cold. One day, as David prepared to leave, Mia held his hand. "Will you help me find a better place for Tom and me?" she asked. David looked into her eyes and nodded. "Yes, Mia. I promise." That evening, David went home thinking about Mia's words. He knew it would take more than kindness to change her life. He would have to use all his strength and resources to give her a safe home and a chance for a better future. But David was ready. For the first time in a long time, his heart was focused on something more important than business. It was focused on a little girl who had taught him the true meaning of courage and hope. The days passed slowly but surely. David continued to visit Mia and her little brother, Tom. Every time he came, he learned more about their world, the struggles they faced and the strength they carried inside. One afternoon, as the sun began to lower behind the tall buildings, Mia sat with David in the small park near the city center. Tom played nearby, chasing a stray butterfly with laughter that was rare and beautiful. David watched the children with a soft smile, but knew there was a deeper story behind those smiles. Mia's eyes grew quiet, and she took a deep breath. "I want to tell you something," she said softly. David nodded. "Whenever you're ready." Mia looked down at her hands, twisting the worn edges of her jacket. "I don't remember much about my parents," she began. "They were kind, but they got sick. Very sick. One day, they were just gone." David's heart ached. "I'm so sorry, Mia." Mia nodded, blinking back tears she didn't want to show. "After that, it was just Tom and me. We tried to stay with family, but they didn't want us. They said they couldn't take care of two children who had no money." David listened quietly, his heart breaking for the two young souls who had faced so much pain. "Where did you go then?" "We found this old building," Mia said. "It's not a home, but it's safe. Sometimes it's cold, and sometimes it smells bad. But it's ours." David looked at the broken walls, the cracked windows. It was hard to imagine a place like that being a home. Yet, in Mia's eyes, it held hope. Hope to survive, hope to protect Tom. Mia continued, "I have to take care of Tom every day. Make sure he eats, stays clean, and doesn't get hurt. Sometimes, I'm scared, but I can't show it to him." David nodded. "You are very brave, Mia. Not many children your age carry such a heavy load." Mia smiled faintly. I don't feel brave. I just have to do it. David's thoughts turned to his own childhood, filled with comfort and security. He couldn't imagine the fear and loneliness Mia had felt. Yet here she was standing strong and caring for someone younger than herself. As the sun disappeared behind the buildings, David felt a deep respect for Mia's courage. "You are not alone anymore," he said gently. "I will help you and Tom. I promise." Mia looked up, hope shining in her eyes. "Thank you, David. It means a lot." The next few days were filled with quiet planning. David thought about what Mia and Tom truly needed, not just food or clothes, but safety, education, and love. He spoke with his friends who worked in social services and child care. Together, they made a plan to help Mia and Tom in a way that would give them a new start. When David returned to Mia and Tom, he brought news. "I have found a safe place where you can stay. It's warm, clean, and has people who will help you learn and grow." Mia looked at David, unsure. "Is it far from here?" David shook his head. "Not far. It's close to schools and parks. You will be safe, and Tom can play with other children." Mia bit her lip. "I don't know. What if it's scary?" David smiled softly. "It might feel new and strange at first. But I will be with you every step of the way." Mia looked at Tom, who was now quietly holding her hand. After a moment, she nodded. "Okay. We will try." David felt a warm light inside. This was the beginning of a new journey, a journey away from fear and loneliness, toward hope and healing. That evening, as the stars appeared in the sky, Mia shared more stories with David. She talked about her dreams, not just of a home, but of going to school, making friends, and helping others one day. David listened, amazed at how much hope could live inside one small heart. "I want to be a teacher," Mia said softly. "So I can help children like me." David smiled wide. "You will be a wonderful teacher." Mia looked up at the sky, eyes bright with dreams. "Maybe one day, I can help kids find their way, just like you helped me." David reached out and held her hand gently. "You already have." The night grew calm, and the city's noise faded into the background. David sat quietly, thinking about how much Mia had already changed his life. Her story was not just about sadness or hardship. It was about strength, hope, and the power of kindness. David knew that helping Mia and Tom was more than an act of charity. It was a chance to rewrite their story, to give them a future full of possibilities. And as Mia rested her head against Tom, David made a promise to himself: he would never stop fighting for children like them. Because sometimes, the smallest hands can hold the greatest dreams. Days passed slowly, but David's visits became more regular. Each time he came, Mia and her little brother Tom grew a little more comfortable around him. The fear in Mia's eyes began to soften, replaced by a cautious hope that something better might be possible. One cool morning, David arrived earlier than usual. Mia was already waiting near the trash bins, holding Tom's hand tightly. Tom looked shy but curious. David could see the children were ready for a change, they just needed a safe way forward. David smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mia." "Tom." "Good morning, sir," Mia said quietly. David nodded, then reached into his bag and pulled out 2 warm blankets and some clothes. "I brought these for you. They will keep you warm." Mia looked at the blankets with wide eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, folding them carefully. David sat down beside them on the cold pavement and looked at Mia with seriousness. "Mia, I want to help you and Tom in a bigger way." Mia's eyes grew wide. "What do you mean?" David took a deep breath. "I want to offer you a safe place to live. A home where you and Tom can be warm, eat well, and go to school. No more searching for food in the trash." Mia stared at him, unsure if she heard him right. "A home?" she asked softly. "Yes," David said. A place where you won't have to worry about being alone or scared. You will have people who care for you. Mia looked down at her worn shoes and then at Tom, who was now playing quietly with a small rock. But, what about the building? The place where we live now? David understood her fear. You can visit anytime. But this new home will be safer and better for both of you. Mia was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the cold nights, the hunger, the fear of being alone. She thought about Tom and the promise she made to keep him safe. Finally, she looked up and nodded slowly. Okay. We will go. David smiled with relief and happiness. Thank you, Mia. You are very brave. Over the next few days, David worked with a team to prepare the new home for Mia and Tom. It was a small apartment in a friendly neighborhood, near schools and parks. The walls were clean, the floors were warm, and there was a small kitchen where they could cook meals. When the day came to move, David arrived early with the car. Mia held Tom's hand tightly as they stepped outside their old shelter for the last time. The sunlight felt warmer on their skin, and Mia felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. David opened the car door for them. Ready? He asked. Mia nodded. Tom smiled shyly. The car ride was quiet. Mia looked out the window at the passing city, feeling a new world opening before her. She wondered what the new home would be like, what school would be like, and if she would be able to make friends. When they arrived, David helped Mia and Tom inside. The apartment was small but cozy. There were 2 beds, a small table, and bright curtains on the windows. Mia's eyes filled with tears. It was the first time she had seen a place that felt like home. David showed them the kitchen and the bathroom. You can ask me anything, he said kindly. And I will help you learn everything. Mia looked at Tom, who was now exploring the room with wide eyes. She smiled, feeling a lightness she had not known before. That night, David brought dinner, warm soup and bread. They ate together around the small table, sharing stories and laughter. For the first time, Mia felt safe enough to relax and enjoy the moment. Over the next weeks, David helped Mia register for school. She was nervous but excited to learn to read and write. Tom, too, started attending a nearby daycare where he could play and learn with other children. Mia's days began to change. Instead of searching for food, she studied and played. She made friends with other children her age, and her smile grew brighter with each passing day. David visited often, bringing books and helping with homework. He listened to Mia's dreams of becoming a teacher and promised to support her all the way. One afternoon, as they walked in the park, Mia looked up at David. Thank you for everything. You changed our lives. David shook his head gently. No, Mia. You changed mine. You taught me what courage and hope really mean. Mia smiled. I want to help others like me when I grow up. David's eyes shone. I believe you will. That night, as Mia and Tom slept peacefully in their new home, David sat quietly, thinking about how a simple act of kindness had started something beautiful. He knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but with hope and love, anything was possible. And for Mia and Tom, a new life had just begun. Weeks turned into months, and the small apartment where Mia and Tom now lived became a place of hope and new dreams. The walls were filled with laughter, and the air smelled of warm meals and fresh pages of books. David watched from a distance, proud of the progress Mia had made. She was no longer the scared girl he first saw digging through trash. She was growing into a confident, joyful child with a bright future. Mia's mornings started early. She would wake up, help Tom get ready for daycare, and then prepare for school herself. The routine was new but welcome, a sign that her life was changing for the better. One morning, as David arrived with breakfast, Mia looked at him with excitement. Today is my first day at school, she said, her eyes shining. David smiled warmly. You will do great, Mia. Remember, I'm always here if you need help. Mia nodded, gripping Tom's hand tightly. Thank you, David. At school, Mia found a world she had never known. The classrooms were bright, filled with colorful pictures and friendly teachers. She sat quietly at her desk, listening carefully and learning fast. Her classmates were kind, and soon she made a few friends. She shared stories about her life, but only when she felt comfortable. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to break down. At home, Mia studied hard. David brought books and helped her practice reading and writing. Sometimes, they played games that made learning fun. One afternoon, Mia looked up from her homework and smiled. I want to be a teacher when I grow up, she said. David nodded. And you will be a great one. Tom, too, was changing. He laughed more, played more, and his health improved. The daycare workers loved him, and he learned new things every day. David often visited, bringing small gifts, pencils, notebooks, even a small plant for their windowsill. Mia cared for the plant carefully, watching it grow as a symbol of their new life. But life was not without challenges. Sometimes, Mia felt lonely or overwhelmed. The memories of her old life still haunted her. One evening, after a difficult day at school, Mia sat quietly in the apartment, tears rolling down her cheeks. Tom noticed and hugged her tightly. David arrived just then and sat beside her. It's okay to feel sad, Mia, he said gently. You've been through a lot. But remember, you're not alone anymore. Mia nodded, wiping her tears. Thank you for being here. David smiled. Always. As time passed, Mia grew stronger and more confident. She began to dream bigger. She wanted to help other children who were struggling like she once did. David encouraged her every step of the way. He knew that Mia's courage and kindness would one day touch many lives. One day, David invited Mia and Tom to a special event he was organizing. It was a gathering of people who wanted to help children in need. Mia was nervous but excited. She stood before the crowd and spoke softly about her journey from the streets to school, from fear to hope. Her story moved many hearts. People offered support, resources, and ideas to help children like Mia and Tom. David watched proudly as Mia spoke. She was no longer just a girl who had been found in the trash. She was a young leader, a symbol of hope and change. After the event, Mia smiled at David. Thank you for giving me a chance. David shook his head. No, Mia. You gave yourself that chance. I just helped open the door. Mia looked at Tom, who was playing nearby, happy and healthy. She knew their journey was just beginning, but now, they walked it with hope and love. David's promise had come true. Mia and Tom had a new beginning, and their future was full of light. Years passed, and Mia grew from a shy, scared girl into a confident young woman full of dreams. The small apartment where she and Tom once lived was now filled with books, laughter, and light. The walls that had once witnessed struggle now held memories of strength and hope. David continued to support Mia through every step of her journey. But now, Mia stood on her own feet, ready to create a future not only for herself but for others like her. Mia had finished school and was preparing to become a teacher, just as she had always dreamed. She worked hard, studying late into the night, determined to make a difference. Tom, now a bright and cheerful boy, was doing well in school too, and he loved playing sports with his friends. One warm afternoon, Mia invited David to the small garden near her apartment. She had planted flowers and vegetables there, a sign of her growing love for life and growth. David smiled as he looked around. You have done an amazing job, Mia. Mia looked at him with gratitude. Thank you for everything, David. You believed in me when no one else did. David shook his head gently. You believed in yourself. I just helped you see it. Mia smiled softly. I want to help other children who feel lost like I once did. I want to start a school for kids who have nowhere to go. David's eyes shone with pride. That is a wonderful dream, Mia. And I will help you make it happen. Together, they began working on the idea. David used his resources to find a building, and Mia reached out to teachers and volunteers. The community came together, inspired by Mia's story and her desire to give back. The school opened its doors a year later. It was a place where children could learn, play, and feel safe. Mia became a teacher there, guiding young minds with kindness and patience. One day, as Mia walked through the classrooms, she saw a little girl who reminded her of herself, a girl with tired eyes but a hopeful heart. Mia sat beside her and took her hand gently. "You are not alone," she said. "We will help you find your way." The little girl smiled faintly, and Mia knew that the cycle of hope was beginning again. David watched from a distance, proud of the young woman Mia had become. He thought about the day he first saw her digging through trash, and how one small act of kindness had changed so many lives. Mia's story was no longer just hers, it belonged to every child who dreamed of a better life. One evening, Mia and David sat together, looking at the stars. "Thank you for changing my life," Mia said softly. David smiled. "Thank you for showing me the power of hope." Mia looked up with determination. "I will keep helping children, no matter what." David nodded. "And I will be there with you." As the night grew quiet, they both knew that their journey was far from over. But with courage, love, and kindness, they had built a future full of hope. Mia's life was proof that no matter how hard the past, a better tomorrow is always possible. And in the heart of the city, under the light of the stars, a young teacher was ready to change the world one child at a time.